I still remember that flight. February 3rd, 1959. Cold enough to hurt. 6 of us in a C-124 hauling cargo north out of Elmendorf. Routine run. Nothing special. I was the radio man back then. A few minutes later, we dropped off radar. Things happened up there no one could explain. When they found us, they said we'd been missing 30 minutes. You want to know what happened in that half hour? The one that ended with our plane in pieces. So before we continue, please make sure to like and subscribe to support the channel and comment down below where you're watching from. Thanks. My name is Walter Miller, radio operator, United States Air Force. Back then I was 23, cold all the time. Fingers cracked from the Alaska air. This was February 3rd, 1959. We were sitting on the flight line at Elmendorf. Dark morning. That kind of cold where metal stings through gloves, breath hanging like steam. The plane was a C-124, big belly cargo hauler. Slow and ugly but honest. We called her Flight 419. Standard runs up to Fairbanks. Nothing special. The pilot was Captain Harris, quiet guy. Co-pilot was a butterbar named Collins. Thought he knew things because he'd been in flight school down in Texas instead of freezing like the rest of us. The navigator was Green, old, tired eyes. The flight engineer was Dalton, always chewing gum. The loadmaster was Sykes. I was on the radio. 6 men. We'd all done this run before, the usual talk before loading. Harris said the weather was light snow and steady wind out of the northwest. Nothing ugly on the charts. No storm wall. Collins complained about coffee. Said it tasted like mop water. Sykes smacks his gloves against the fuselage, trying to loosen the ice. Said his fingers were gonna snap off like pretzels. We laughed at that. I was in the radio seat with my headset on, flipping through checks. Antenna switching clean. Frequencies clear. I logged our call sign with control. Normal traffic. All calm. Only one thing popped early. I got a mild magnetic interference flag on the panel. Needle drifted and bounced, then settled. Nothing screaming. Nothing outside spec. We always saw weird signal stuff when we flew near the Hayes Range. Everybody said Mount Hayes messed with compasses. Locals said there was something under it. Army guys who'd been up there doing survey work said their radios cut out and watches started running fast. I'd heard the story since I got assigned north. Nothing official. We wrote it off as ice scatter and terrain echo. I wrote it in the log like I always did. Minor mag distortion. Possibly local. Routine note. Stamp. Time. Outside the window was just white and gray. Snow blew low over the tarmac. You couldn't tell where the ground ended and the air started. February up there looks like the whole world got erased. We got final checks from maintenance. Fuel topped. Oil pressure was good. Cargo tied down. Crates and drums. Spare parts. Rations. I remember Sykes slapping one of the straps and saying, "If this shifts, we all die quick instead of slow, so that's polite." We climbed up. The cabin felt like an empty warehouse that could fly. You could smell hydraulic fluid and cold aluminum. We sealed the plane and told ground we were ready to roll to the runway. Takeoff rolled clean. No rattle, no yaw. Harris held her steady and patient. The C-124 never jumps. It drags itself off the ground like an old dog standing up. I watched the runway lights smear and fall away into the murk. Then nothing but snow haze and early blue. Gear came up. I logged in. Control handed us off and told us to maintain for climb northbound. We acknowledged, voice clear. No strain. They sounded bored. We climbed through the muck and leveled out. Green gave us a heading. Collins repeated the altitude back. Dalton called temps and fuel flow. The plane hummed like normal. You fly long enough, you know the way a good engine sounds. You also know when something's off. Nothing sounded off. I kept scanning the board. Our radar picture had a little static crawling on it. Just a jitter at the edge of the sweep. It looked like snow had returned. I marked it. Slight static return. Likely precip, navigator initiated. That was it. That's how normal it was. Cabin settled into that cruise quiet. Guys get lazy after takeoff if nothing's wrong. Green hunched over his chart and pencil. Dalton leaned back and washed his gauges like a man watching his kids sleep. Collins cracked his knuckles too loud because butter bars always need everyone to know they're awake. Sykes stretched out and back, boots braced against a crate, eyes half closed. I could hear him humming under his breath on the interphone. Harris just stared forward, calm, hands light on the yoke. Outside, when I looked through the cockpit glass, it was just flat sky. Pale, still, off to the side, down on the deck, was nothing but frozen country. Snow and ridgelines and dry river cuts. No trees, no animals, no smoke, just empty. It looked harmless. That's what I remember most about that first part. Nothing looked like trouble. We hit cruise. Altitude steady, airspeed steady. Route to Fairbanks was straight. We'd done it 100 times. A milk run. I kept the log going. Positions, timestamps, weather call. We passed over our first check without issue. Control asked for altitude confirmation. Collins read it back. Smooth, they said Roger and told us to continue. That was the last normal call we ever made. Green leaned back and said, 2 hours of boredom, boys. Dalton grunted. Sykes crackled in on the interphone and asked if anybody had heat in their section because his feet were done. Collins told him to stop crying. Sykes told him to earn his butter bar and bring him coffee, stuff like that. Regular crew noise, kept the nerves away. I breathed on my hands and rubbed them together. Even inside, even with the heaters running, you never really get warm up there in winter. I remember thinking, this is fine, this is routine. This is just another northern hop. We'll be on the ground, grab chow, bitch about the cold, and rack out. I had no clue yet. None of us did. About 30 minutes in, things started to feel wrong. It wasn't a drama at first. Just little threads pulling loose. We hit a light chop. Nothing heavy, just that soft rattle through the frame. The radio picked up a hiss. Not full static, just a dirty edge. Like the band was getting sand in it. I tapped my headset and shifted. Sometimes vibration throws contact off. Didn't fix it. Green called out heading again. He sounded annoyed. I turned and looked at him. He was squinting at his compass like it owed him money. I leaned closer and saw it. The needle had jumped. It shivered hard left, then floated back center, then settled like nothing happened. Still good? Collins asked. Green said, yeah, it's fine, but he said it was slow. The temperature inside the cabin dropped fast. You could feel it. I saw frost creep along the inside edge of the window next to me. I blinked at that. Inside frost means the seal's bad or heat's failing, but all the heaters read normal. Dalton swore under his breath and rubbed his hands. You could see his breath now. That wasn't right. I started hearing something in the headset. Not static this time. Clicking. Soft. Even. Like someone tapping a pencil on a desk through the line. Tick, 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 tick. Steady rhythm. I thought maybe it was one of our own mics keyed halfway, brushing cloth. I asked over interphone, you guys hot mic back there? Sykes came on. Negative. I'm quiet like a church, Collins said. Not me. Green said, hearing it too. Nobody joked after that except Sykes, and even he forced it. He said, probably the ghosts around Hayes doing their check-in. He tried to laugh. Nobody else did. Mount Hayes was still ahead of us. You don't see it right away in bad winter light, but everybody knows where it is. Everybody hears stories. Missing hikers. Lost bush planes. Army survey gear fritzing out for no reason. Guys from other squadrons talked about weird compass swings and dead channels for no good reason in that zone. We always said it was just rocks throwing the needles off, iron content, stuff like that. That's what the command said anyway. Control called in and asked us to confirm our position. Harris answered, voice steady. Flight 419, on course, altitude holding. There was a beat. Then we heard our own call come back. Same words, same voice, but late, echoed, faint, like it bounced off something slow and dragged. I looked over at Harris. He looked at me, just for a second. That was the first time I felt anything like fear in him. There was ice filming up along the inside of the cockpit glass now. Inside, we never had that. I could see the frost crawling, thin white veins spreading out slow, like it was growing, not forming. My hands felt numb even inside wool and leather. I wrote it down in the log. Unusual interference near Hayes Range. Temp drops 2 degrees in the cabin, frost forming internally. I am still mad at how calm that line looks in that book. Like it was nothing. Outside the windows, The horizon started looking pale. Hard to explain. In Alaska winter, the horizon is already bad. It's a wash of gray on gray, not much contrast. But this was different. The pale wasn't fog. It was like the whole line where the sky met the ground was smearing out. You couldn't tell where the mountains ended. Everything past a certain distance looked soft, like we were flying into milk. I keyed the radio and tried again with control. The band came back rough. I was starting to get a headache from the hiss. That clicking went on steady in my left ear. It didn't sound like weather. Weather noise is messy. This was measured. I logged that too. Green leaned toward Harris and said, "Real quiet, compass is twitchy. We're still good, but I don't like it." Harris nodded once. Didn't say anything yet. The air felt heavier then, colder and heavier. I could feel it in my teeth. We kept flying. About 5 minutes after that, Harris spoke up on the net and said, "Control, be advised, we've got possible traffic at 12. Looks like the same type of aircraft, same altitude." I jerked my head up. Same type aircraft meant another C-124. There weren't that many of us up there at once. We weren't running formation. Nobody briefed a second bird on the same quarter that tight. I leaned over the glare shield and looked, and I saw it. There was another C-124 out front, maybe a couple miles ahead. Same fat tail, same paint, same squadron markings. It wasn't crossing. It was leading us. Nose pointed same direction. Same gentle rocking in the turbulence. Like we were chasing ourselves. Colin said, "What the hell, we're the only heavy on this lane right now." Green said nothing. He was staring at it like he forgot how to blink. I called it up on radar. We got 2 returns. 2 strong hits, same general speed. One was us, one was forward. Ground radar confirmed. They said, "Copy, we're painting 2 of you." Calm voice, no drama. Just like that. Dalton muttered, "Must be a reflection. Mountain bounce, ice bounce, something." That was the only explanation that made any sense. Sometimes you get false ghosts from ice cliffs and sharp angles. You learn not to freak on first contact. We all wanted it to be that. Harris kept course, didn't chase, didn't panic, just logged it and told control again. That's when the radio got bad. I made a call to ground. 419, experiencing interference. About 10 seconds later, I heard the same call in my own headset, my own voice. Same words, but bent, slowed, like I'd been drinking hard. After that came whispers, couldn't make out words, but they sounded like us, all of us, layered and out of sync, talking over each other, like we'd had the same conversation before and it got recorded and was now bleeding back in at the wrong time. Colin said, "Turn us a hair right, just to clear that guy." Harris rolled us a few degrees right. That other plane rolled the same way. Perfect match, perfect timing. Nobody breathed for a second. Then the lights flickered. Whole cabin went out just like that, dead dark. Maybe 1 second, maybe less. Long enough for my gut to drop, long enough to hear somebody in back yell, "Hey," then everything came back on. Gauges spun, then leveled. Radios rebooted. My board popped and hummed back like nothing happened. The pressure in my ears went bad. Sharp. A dropping too fast in a dive, but we weren't diving. I swallowed and tried to clear it. Didn't clear. Hurt down in my jaw. Made my eyes water. I wrote in the log, electrical interruption, cabin pressure change. My hand was shaking now. We were still following that other C-124, whether we wanted to or not. That's when things started to slide for real. First thing, gauges. Dalton cursed loud. His altimeter jumped up a few hundred feet, then back down, then up again. Not a slow drift, a snap, like somebody flicked it with a finger. Airspeed twitched next. Oil temp nudged into yellow and then dropped back into normal like it never moved. He tapped the face. Nothing changed. He said, "These are lying. These are lying to me." Engines still sounded steady. You don't fake that. The sound was right, but the dials weren't matching the sound anymore. I checked outside. The snowfields under us didn't look like snow anymore. Same shapes, yeah, same general layout. Rivers, ridges, flats, but the color was off. Too dark, like wet steel instead of powder. I blinked and leaned against the glass. Thought maybe it was just light, But it wasn't just light. It was wrong. I don't have better words for that. Green and Collins both tried to run recalibration on heading. Nothing took. Compass needle started its own dance now. Full spins, slow circles, then stop, then circle again. Green muttered, "That's not possible," over and over like a prayer. The silence crept in after that. Engines still on, props still chewing. But it felt like they were behind a wall now, muffled. I could see the RPM steady where it should be. I could see vibration in the pedals, the yoke. But it all sounded like we'd put on earmuffs. Sound going soft like that in flight makes your stomach turn. Your brain thinks engines are dying even when they're not. Then I smelled it. Burnt. Not a full fire smell. Not smoke. Just that cooked insulation stink. Wiring getting too hot somewhere in the panel. I leaned down under my board, ran my glove along the housing. No glow, no flame, nothing browning out. But I could smell it plain as day. Dalton smelled it too. He unbuckled half out of habit and half out of panic, looked aft, saw no fire, strapped back in. He didn't say anything. He just licked his lips and kept working his gauges like that would fix something. We tried to get our bearings again. Harris told Green, "Get me an honest fix." Green tried. He tried good. He did dead reckoning, drift lines, timing, speed, wind. All the old school stuff they drilled into him back when Korea was still hot. He plotted. He checked. He stared. Then he looked up and said, "Real flat. That can't be right." Harris said, "We're not over where we're supposed to be." Green said, "If this is right, we're too far east and too high. Way too high. We're up past what this route even runs. We shouldn't even be able to pull this altitude with this load." Harris said nothing. Control started dropping out. When I keyed up, I got them, but it was like talking through a tunnel. Words stretched, latched, came back wrong. I could hear them, but they sounded older, hard to explain. Like the same voice, but rougher, tired. Like whoever was working the radio on their end hadn't slept in a day and smoked 2 packs through a hangover. You know how a voice sounds different after a long night? It sounded like that, but we talked to them 20 minutes earlier and they sounded fine then. They asked us for position again. I gave it. The number came out of my mouth and it didn't match what Green had. Green shook his head and wrote down what I said anyway because that's what you do. Then the ground picture didn't match our map anymore. We banked in a slow circle trying to reorient. Terrain outside wasn't what it should have been. That river bend that should have been on our left side was now on our right. That ridge line that should have been running north-south now angled wrong like somebody had mirrored the whole world. Everything felt flipped. Collins whispered, "We got turned around." Harris said, "Negative. We never rolled that far. That other plane was still ahead of us. Still perfect. Still leading. No matter how we adjusted." I watched Harris grip the yoke harder now. He wasn't calm anymore. Nobody was calm anymore. You could hear it in the way we stopped talking. Men get loud when they're worried. Men get quiet when they're scared. We all went quiet. We kept flying over that place. I won't call it Alaska anymore. It looked like Alaska, but it wasn't. Mountains below had the same bones. Same general spine. I've flown that route enough to know the shapes. You start to recognize certain ridges like you recognize faces. I could see those shapes, but the light was wrong on them. Sun angle didn't match. Shadows fell where they shouldn't. Long where they should have been short. Bright where they should have been dark. You learn sun angles flying winter up there. You know where the glare should sit on the snow at that hour. This wasn't that. It felt like somebody had moved the sun without telling us. I said, "Something's wrong with the sun," and I remember how stupid that sounded, even as I said it. But nobody laughed at me. I started recording everything out loud into the cabin recorder. My voice sounds steady on that tape. I've heard it since. I hate that tape. You can hear the shake just under it. You can hear I already knew we were dead. Green checked his plot again. He ran it 3 times. His numbers said we were higher than the bird should pull for that weight. He said, "We're above ceiling," under his breath. That shouldn't have been possible without us feeling it. But we felt like level cruise. No climb strain. Nothing. I looked at the radio panel again because that clicking that had started earlier, it hadn't stopped. It got louder, faster, like something excited. Then it wasn't just clicking anymore. I started hearing our old calls, stuff we'd said 10 minutes before, Flight 419, on course. Copy control, we confirm, little phrases like that. Our voices, exact, but they were coming back again like we were still saying them even when we weren't, over and over, looping, tailing us. That's when Colin said, "We're chasing ourselves." No one answered him. Then a second transmission cut in. Same call sign, same tail number, same everything, and it was us. Not just our voices, our whole damn traffic. Word for word, but the times were off. The timing was wrong. It was like we were hearing ourselves from 5-10 minutes ago. We'd talk, then we'd hear us talk, again delayed, then the delay started shrinking, like it was catching up. I started to feel sick. Harris said, low so only we could hear inside the cockpit, not over the air. We're not in our airspace anymore. He stared forward at that other plane. We're in theirs. Green swallowed. Whose? Harris didn't answer that. He just said, we're turning back. We're not staying in this. We turn before it closes. Those were his words. Before it closes. Closes what? I still don't know. He banked us left. Not hard. Just a normal corrective turn. Gentle. Controlled. Bring us back around. Back toward where we thought real Alaska should be. The second he rolled into that turn, the plane got hit. Not with wind. Not chop. Not like turbulence we trained for. This felt like slamming into a wall midair. Whole frame kicked. My teeth snapped together. Lights blew out. Dead black again. I heard metal scream. All power dropped. Every panel went dark. The only thing you could hear was your own heartbeat. Then hell opened. Engines surged. Full blast, then choke, then blast again. Not pilot input. Harris was fighting the yoke now. Both hands, shoulders in it. I could see his jaw clenched so hard it looked like it might crack. The airframe shook hard enough to rattle fillings. I slammed back into my seat and grabbed the side of the panel to keep from getting thrown. Straps dug into my chest. Light started pulsing through the windows. Not from inside. From outside. Red, then white, then red again. Fast. Too fast. Strobe fast. I could see it flashing across Harris's face. Made his eyes look bloodshot. The static in my headset turned into a scream. No more clicking. Just full blast noise like tearing metal, and all of us yelling layered on top of each other. It felt like needles in my head. I ripped the headset off, but I could still hear it. That sound wasn't just in the radio anymore. Somebody in back was shouting something. Could have been Sykes, could have been Dalton. I couldn't make out words. Everything got drowned. Burning smell went from faint to choking. That sharp, hot wire stink. My eyes started watering. I tasted copper in my mouth. Outside the windows, the sky wasn't sky. It wasn't blue or gray anymore. It broke apart in strips. I saw bands of green like northern lights, but not moving like normal aurora. These bands were straight, rigid, layered with dirty violet and then this dead hospital gray. They weren't above us either. They were around us, like we were inside something and the walls were peeling. I know how that sounds. I don't care. Left outboard engine blew. I heard the bang before I saw it. Metal fragments punched through the fuselage aft. You could smell fuel for half a second, then just burnt oil. Plane lurched hard left. Harris fought it. Dalton yelled that we'd lost pressure on that engine, voice ragged. Then Dalton just stopped yelling like someone cut his line. Gravity went weird. Not straight down anymore. It snapped sideways. My body got thrown against the bulkhead like the floor had turned. My shoulders slammed metal. I felt something pop in my back. I remember colors blasting across my eyes. Red, white. Couldn't tell what was up. Cargo straps tore loose and back. I heard something heavy break restraints and slide. Sykes was yelling, trying to get hold of it. Then there was this crunch sound and he cut out too. I caught pieces of the view down through the side window between flashes. We were dropping. I could see terrain under us, but it wasn't the terrain we took off over. The mountains were wrong. The ridges were shaped wrong. Too sharp. Angles that don't exist in glacial country. I saw a river that glow-lit from underneath like something hot was running under the ice. I tried to key the radio. Muscle memory. Training. Mayday, Flight 41N. All I got out was that. The rest vanished in the noise. All the cockpit instruments spun down to zero. Not slowly. They just fell. Dead needles. Nothing alive left. The last thing I remember seeing before I blacked out was Harris still holding that yoke like it was the only thing keeping him in this world. Blood running from his nose. Teeth bared. Eyes locked forward on nothing. I came back to alarms and fire. I was on the deck. I don't remember unstrapping. My headset was gone. My left ear was ringing so hard I thought I'd gone deaf. The cabin stank like burning rubber and spilled fuel and hot metal. Red lights were blinking emergency. Half the cockpit was shredded. The left side was open to daylight where the panel had torn. You could see snow blowing in hard, whipping around in the pressure leak. Everything hurt. I rolled up onto my knees slow and saw Harris slumped over, neck at a bad angle. Collins was out cold, blood all down his face, still breathing in these short little rabbit breaths. Dalton was awake but barely. He had both hands on the throttle controls, trying to keep us level. His right sleeve was burned open. I could see blistered skin. He looked at me, and his eyes were wide and empty and scared. He shouted, "We're still flying," and I realized we were. We hadn't hit yet. The whole bird was groaning. We were dropping altitude fast. You could feel the sink in your guts. My stomach felt like it was up in my throat. I crawled back into my seat and grabbed for the radio. Most of my panel was fried black, but the backup channel was still flickering. I jammed the transmit and screamed into it. I don't even know what I said first. I was half blind and panicking. I think I gave tail number and inbound emergency and losing altitude, and somebody answered, control answered. But here's the part that still gets me. They said, "We thought you were gone. You dropped off at 1420. It's 1450 now. Say status." We hadn't been gone 30 minutes. For us, it'd been seconds. Maybe a minute. We got hit, everything went to hell, lights out. I opened my eyes, and they're talking like we vanished half an hour and then reappeared on their radar, out of nowhere, already falling out of the sky. I looked at the cockpit clock. It was ahead. 30 minutes ahead of what I had in my handwritten log. I said, "We're on fire, we lost an engine, we're going down." Dalton was trying to talk Harris awake. Harris wasn't waking. Collins was still in La La Land. Green was gone. I don't mean dead. I mean gone. His seat was empty. His harness was torn like something had ripped it straight through the buckle. I never saw him again. Sykes wasn't answering on interphone. I smelled snow now. Real snow. Cold and clean cutting through the burn stink. We were low, too low. I looked out the wrecked side of the cockpit and saw ground coming up fast. Snowfields rushing up. You could see the skin of the world getting bigger and bigger until it filled the whole view. Left wing tore. I heard the scream of metal, then a violent snap that shook my bones. The whole plane lurched left and started to spin. Dalton yelled something wordless. I screamed brace. Instinct. Training. Brace, brace, brace. Then the sound cut, not muffled. Cut. Like somebody turned the whole world off. Impact wasn't like in the movies. No big explosion, no rolling fireball. It was a punch. Hardest punch you can imagine, straight through the spine. Everything went white, then black, then quiet. When I came back the second time, it was silent except for wind. No engines, no alarms. Just that thin Arctic wind blowing across torn metal. I was on my back in snow. My ribs felt cracked. My left arm wouldn't move right. My face mask was gone and the air felt like knives in my throat. I pushed up slow and looked around. The plane was in pieces. The fuselage was split open about midway. Smoke was drifting out, lazy in the cold. You could see sparks popping inside where wiring was still cooking down. Snow all around us was blasted out in a wide trench where we'd carved in. I started yelling names. No one answered. I stumbled forward. My legs worked, kind of. I slipped twice on ice and wreckage. I almost went down on a jagged spar. I saw Dalton first. He was still strapped in his seat, or what was left of it. Neck bent wrong. Eyes open. Gone. Harris was crumpled under part of the nose section, twisted up in metal. Collins was half thrown out the side, still breathing shallow. Pink foam at his mouth. He was making this wet rattle. I knew he wasn't gonna last. I couldn't find Green. I couldn't find Sykes. Then I saw something that stopped me cold. Out past our wreck, maybe 20 yards off in the snow, there was another wreck. Another C-124. Same paint. Same tail number. Same goddamn busted nose profile. Same black scorch marks along the left side where the engine blew. Except this one looked older. Snow drifted higher against it. Skin more peeled back, metal more frost burned. Like it had been sitting there longer. I just stared. I walked to it in this dumb, slow walk like I was sleepwalking. Wind cut through my flight suit. My teeth were chattering so hard I bit my tongue, but I still walked. The other wreck had the same cargo code stenciled on the torn fuselage, same squadron badge. I could see our unit marker plain as day. I could see our plane number, 419. I remember thinking, how can we crash next to our own crash? I don't remember a lot after that. I remember dropping to my knees. I remember shaking. I remember trying to scream and nothing coming out because my throat was frozen and full of smoke. Rescue birds came later. Could have been hours. Could have been less. I lost track. I remember rotors. I remember guys in parkas yelling and lights cutting through blowing snow and hands on me. I remember someone wrapping a wool blanket around my shoulders and telling me to stay awake. I remember asking them if they could see the other wreck. Nobody answered that. They hauled me out. I blacked again. They told me later I was the only one who made it out breathing for more than a few minutes. They told me all the clocks on board, every surviving one they recovered, were 30 minutes ahead of base time. A few weeks after, I sat in a warm room on base. Real chair. Real light. Coffee that didn't taste like mop water. My arm was in a sling. I had stitches above my eye. My ribs were taped. Breathing still hurt. There were 2 officers I didn't know, not squadron. Suits, not flight jackets, 1 major, 1 civilian. They asked me to walk it start to finish. I told them, all of it. The mag interference before haze, the temp drop, the frost on the inside of the glass, the echo on the radio, the second plane, the way our own voices bled back late, the terrain flipped, the sun is wrong, the way the sky broke apart, the engine blowing, the 30-minute jump, the other wreck on the ice with the same tail number. I told them about green vanishing. I told them about control saying we'd gone for 30 minutes. They wrote a lot. Then they told me, calm and polite, that what happened was disorientation, magnetic disturbance, weather. The haze range was known for that. They said maybe we got turned around in bad visibility. Maybe we circled without realizing, burned an engine, lost altitude, and went in. They said stress and concussion can cause memory breaks. They said I'd taken a bad hit. They said I wasn't remembering straight. I said, we saw our own plane on the ground. The civilian said there was only 1 crash site. I said, play the cockpit tape. They brought it in, reel to reel. They ran it. I heard my own voice come through the speaker. Calm, reporting, logging interference, logging frost, logging the second aircraft, logging the turn. Then I heard myself say clear as day, we didn't crash. We crossed over. I don't remember saying that, but it's on the tape. They stopped it there. They didn't let it run to impact. They sealed the tape. They told me the official cause was pilot spatial disorientation in heavy winter conditions, resulting in loss of control and catastrophic airframe failure. They stamped it. Case closed. I asked about the clocks, the 30-minute jump. They said instruments get knocked around in a crash. I asked where green went. They didn't answer. I asked why the control said we'd gone for 30 minutes. They said control was stressed, confused, mixed up at times. I asked, if we were confused, how'd we talk to you on the way down? They didn't answer that either. I put in for transfer that spring. I got it. I was out of Alaska before the year ended. I never flew again. So that's the end of our video. If you made it this far, make sure to hit like and subscribe. It really helps the channel and it's free. And if you want more terrifying encounters like this one, check out the other videos on screen right now. Thanks for watching and stay safe out there. See you soon.